So this evening we're going to talk about how to rebuild, unfreeze, and lead your supply chain team to thrive in the recession. Now we're talking specifically about your supply chain team, and we want to go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor, supplychainmanagement.jobs, where you can post your jobs for people that are looking for a job, or if you're looking for a job, go ahead and post your resume so you can be found by people looking for experts just like you in the supply chain arena. So definitely shout out to them and give them a moment of your time to explore the website and find out more how you can help them, our sponsor. What you're going to learn is how to set your team up for success in the recession, your supply chain team specifically, because we have a supply chain situation. It started with the pandemic and it's been progressing just based on geopolitical world things that are going on. Of course, we got the hamburger has gone up in price, which is a crisis in itself because I enjoy hamburgers. I enjoyed my cheeseburgers and my bacon and all those different things to help enjoy my cheeseburger. And as you can see, bacon is one of the largest things or one of the most expensive things in your hamburger, and the price just keeps going up. Well, that may be a crisis for some, but not for others. But for those that enjoy hamburgers like myself, there's definitely something to be concerned about. The war in Ukraine has been causing people to progress or to forecast out into the future an impact on GDP across the world. And they see GDP is going to go down. We can see raw materials prices are going up. Things are changing in the world for all things. You can see all of these are recent statistics. So the prices are continuing to go up. You note here, we have energy is going up, wheat. And when we think about wheat and corn and other things that are in the food chain, we have to really consider the cost there because labor relies on food, right? And food is not something you just turn on a spigot and turn off the spigot. It takes time to grow that stuff. So we got to be watching the food. Global inflation going up. Now, you look at this map and you see a lot of the what we call manufacturing type countries. They're the ones that are going to experience the highest inflation. We are a consumer society, so we consume things that are produced from overseas. So if you see inflation going up there, eventually those prices start to come over to the consumer side. So prices will continue to go up. In 2021, from 2019 to 2021, we saw 12,500 disruptions in the supply chain. 47% of those were in North America, and it had a cost of $228 million just in North America alone. As you can see, North America, the Nordic countries, across the world, United Kingdom, these were all impacted by disruptions in your supply chain. But what were some of the challenges in 2021? Break those down. We had 7 different challenges. Supply chain disruptions, hiring qualified workers, customer demand for faster response times, out of stock situations, forecasting, customer demand on cost, and synchronization of your supply chain. If we start to take a look at those, the cause of supply chain disruption is out of stock situations, forecasting, and synchronization of your supply chain. So when that's not in sync, then you have supply chain disruptions. The root cause of those issues is the people, hiring qualified workers. A person has to read the data, has to take action on the information, and they're responsible to maximize the margin. A lot of times we talk about software and big data and all these things working in the supply chain, and people are like, well, it's a software. We get more software, it makes it better, makes it faster, which it can make it faster, but if you're not doing the right things, it just makes doing the wrong things faster and bigger. People need to be involved here. And when we have the right people in place, that's the primary solution. We have the people facing the vendors. They're managing the vendors, the timing of delivery to meet customer demand. They're negotiating with the vendors to get the prices down to meet customer demand on pricing. And they're able to respond to out of stock scenarios because they're able to make phone calls, find other vendors, find other sources of supply to keep things moving. A machine can't do that as well. A machine is only as good as the data put into it, and the data is relying on other people to do their job as well. A lot of things are automated, but when we're in a crisis, that means something that's routine is not happening. Something's different happening. You need somebody with judgment to go in there and start to make a difference. So would we be in a crisis? Well, it kind of depends. Have you been thinking and planning, or you're waiting and reacting? How you see the world and how you are working within the world will determine whether or not you're in a crisis or you're just getting ready for another bump in the road. As you can see, my name is Randy Malden. I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps working with crisis supply chain. What does that mean? We would go on a mission, we'd have to respond rapidly and go in and do a mission based on the supply chain we had. The things that we didn't have, we had to go find. We had to go bring them in from somewhere else. Since I got out of service, I've been teaching and training and consulting in supply chain management, helping companies and helping individuals get further in their supply chain career. So a little bit of housekeeping this evening. Would love for you to interact with me. If you have any questions, go ahead and hit that question button down there and it'll put it into the question and answer queue. That's better than the chat because when you have a specific question, it goes right there. And once I answer it, we'll mark it off and we'll go down and answer the next question. If it's in the chat, it can get pushed down by all the other comments that are out there as well. And we don't want your question to be overlooked. So go ahead and put your questions there. If you like what you're hearing or like what you hear, go ahead and go into the smiley face and put in some type of reaction. If you're enjoying, thumbs up, give us a thumbs up. If it's a funny thing I say, which doesn't happen often, but it might happen once in a while, then it's a good thing for people to hear that, you know, that we're doing the right thing. It helps us become interactive within our presentation. So let's talk about the hidden risks, things you can do right now, and how you can increase your supply chain resilience. And then we'll take some questions and answers towards the end. What are the hidden risks? Most likely you have good technology, but how are your people doing? How are your people doing? Ask yourself, how did your supply chain team perform during the pandemic? Most likely they responded, they reacted, and they made things happen. When the systems failed, when the inventory was out of stock, people jumped in and they made things happen. What have they been doing since the pandemic? Most likely doing the same thing. But is that what you need right now? They've been doing what they've been told to do, what they've been trained to do, what they do best. React, respond, make things happen. But is that really what you need going into the future, into the supply chain world we're getting ready to go into? Before the pandemic, CFOs were able to dictate savings goals. They're able to drive prices down and beat up the vendors to give them the best pricing possible, the best terms possible. Now, after the pandemic, CFOs are asking, what's the cost? What's the availability? And they want to work with the vendors, not only to keep costs down, but more importantly, to keep the supply chain moving. They don't want to run out of stuff. And even though it's a CFO issue as far as paying for stuff, it's a COO issue as far as keeping things functioning so your company can deliver to the customer. And it takes people to do that. It takes people to do that. And that's why we have a hidden risk. A hidden risk is not on your ERP dashboard. It's your people. People, when they get into a crisis mode, which we've been in since the pandemic, a lot of people just been responding and it's starting to get normalized, but now we're getting ready to go into recession and something's going to happen now. So, you know, they're overusing their strengths. Your talent may be misaligned within your organization and your team just may be frozen and not doing anything because they just don't know what to do. So when they overuse their strengths, they tend to rely on what they do best. One of the stories I like to share there is that in the Marine Corps, we would go to the rifle range. And in the beginning, when I went in the beginning, we'd go to the rifle range and we would fire. If we ever had a jam in our rifle, we would raise our hand for someone to come over and unstick that jam and then continue firing. Well, when we went into combat during Desert Storm and continued to progress, they were on and they were engaging. And when they had a jam in the middle of combat, people would raise their hand and hope somebody would come over to clear the rifle and allow them to go on. But there was no one to come. There was no coach there. I share that with you to share that people do what they're trained to do, what their natural behavior tells them they should do. And that's their natural tendency. So they're going to keep doing that. What it may mean is they continue to do a lot of the stuff that they were taught to do, but it may not be the stuff you need them to do. They're not flexing to the new situations, handling the risk the way they need to be handled. Your team may be misaligned. As you're going through the crisis, people left, new situations came up, new needs were identified, people jumped in those slots and made it happen. They worked through it. They did the things they had to do to make it happen, which means they started to come off their primary goal and started going to what was had to be done. So they may be continuing to do what had to be done, but that's not really where they're best fit. So what you're experiencing there is they're just getting tired. They're doing things they're not really set up naturally to do. They're just making it happen because that's the job they were put into. So you would have people that are what we call misaligned. They're not in the best position for their personality, So prior to the crisis, they were most likely aligned where they needed to be. After the crisis, and now they may or may not be in the right place. Your team may be frozen. They just don't know what to do. They're not certain because they're not getting the leadership. The role hasn't been redefined. It's just not what they've been taught to do. So they don't know what to do. So they just keep doing the same thing, which may or may not be effective and where you need to go, where your supply chain needs to be right now. You know, as I see this picture here, you got the guy just sitting there looking at the wave of work coming at him and not doing anything, frozen in time. And it could be a work related, it could even be a personal issue where they're worried about their family. During COVID, they were worried about, their health. Now it's the recession, they're probably worried about paying bills and making sure their family's safe. And they just probably like, I don't know what to do. What you're looking for are people who can navigate the waters no matter what. They understand what needs to happen. They're moving, they're functioning, they're taking charge, and they're getting things done. And like I said here, you want a guy or a gal who can just, when things start to happen, they can hop on the desk and paddle and make it happen one way or another, which goes back to what we're talking in the beginning. They start to overuse their strengths. They start to get misaligned in their natural talents. They start to get tired because they just don't know what to do. So once that's happening, you've got to, as a leader, step back and reset to figure out what are the next steps. So what do you need to do? You need to do 4 things. You need to understand, unfreeze, rebuild, lead, lead, lead. You as a leader, whether you are an individual contributor where you need to lead yourself to get things going, or you're a manager, a director, vice president, whatever that role is, you have to lead. Somebody has to take charge and direct people what to do. So how do we understand what's going on? Organizations have been evaluated by the Harvard Business School in 4 different areas where they are basically in this framework. They're either an exploring type organization, a producing type organization, a stabilizing type organization, and a cultivating type organization. And the best way to illustrate that is kind of think about companies that fit in these different quadrants. An exploring company is going to be one that is breaking new ground. An Uber, an Airbnb, PayPal when it was started. These are exploring companies making new things happen. A producing company is going to be more of an operations type organization. Something in the manufacturing area would be a good example. Stabilizing would be finance. These are the folks that, just kind of like we got to pay the bills, keep things moving. Or cultivating would be more of the nonprofit area. These are the folks that are cultivating culture, making things happen. And, just they're there not because they have to be there, but because they want to be there. So you need a cultivating culture that helps bring people in and they want to participate. I would offer to you the old way of supply chain was very much in the lower quadrant, producing results and stabilizing the organization to keep things moving forward. Where we need to go, the new way, is exploring and cultivating. Exploring the supply chain for whatever it is now, finding new options, finding new resources, and cultivating employees to engage with vendors, build relationships. So you become a reliable customer to a reliable vendor. It's a different way of thinking. And then on top of that, you want to think about your team. Now, what happened with the teams is on top of the strategic framework, they placed this quadrant, which talks about teams and how they behave, their focus. And those that are more in the upper side are transforming, more to the right are strategic focused, more to the left are internally focused, and down toward the bottom are executing and meeting results. Again, the old way for a supply chain organization within an organization would be focused on the organization. How do we make people comply with policies, do what they're supposed to do to save money, keep costs down, managing expectations to deliver the results to get the margin people needed. But things have changed where you are transforming supply chain, new players, new relationships, new technology, new sources, old ways of doing business, new ways of doing business. So you need a supply chain team that is able to transform, able to look at the strategy and find new ways of doing business. And as things start to stabilize, then as we've experienced, the pandemic happened, people responded, they did certain things, started to calm down. Then the recession hit, people responded, and we're getting ready to go into recession now. And all these different, the political with the Ukraine, China, inflation, resources, all these things are changing. So you need a supply chain team that is thinking and able to explore, think out of the box. How do we unfreeze? We need to understand the focus of the company itself. What is the company doing? What is it doing? Is it one of those exploring, strategic type, or is it more of driving results and process driven? Once we understand that, we then need to look at supply chain. What is our role within the company? Look at each team member within the supply chain organization and have them focus on those tasks that have the highest priority to achieve the focus of the company. So you want to define that. How can we do that? There are about 10 different strategy types that have been found by looking at teams and organizations. What are the strategies they focus on? And they're all common. And so these are the different 10 types of strategy types that are out there. And so you want to be able to analyze, find which strategy you align with, and make sure your team is starting to align with that. These are different team types. What does it mean? Through an analysis, we find out what strategy you're working on, and then we look at your team and say, well, what kind of team is that? And then we want to try and find out how we can align the team to meet your strategy. That's when we start to rebuild the team. How do we do that? We identify the team members and how they're contributing, their strengths and weaknesses, identify any gaps in the talent, and then maybe realign people or hire new people. One of the ways that we talk about that is we want to look at who's in the room. Who's in the room that maybe we need to move to a different job? Who's in the building? Maybe somebody else in a different part of the organization. For example, we're building relationships. Salespeople are very good at relationships. So maybe you're looking at bringing a salesperson into the supply chain team for their relationship skills, their negotiating skills, their abilities to solve problems for customers, which they could transfer into solving problems for their vendors. So that's where you're looking at filling within the building and or hiring off the street. Who's on the street to hire to bring them into the organization? How do we do that? Through analysis and doing assessments, we're able to identify the behaviors of people and put their profiles and see how they fit within that strategy we were talking before, exploring, producing, stabilizing, or cultivating. And then we have some profiles in the middle that are very good at just balancing it all out, keeping it all together. And then we look at aligning your team. So when you look at this chart, this is an example of how we're able to help you in that once we analyze your team, we plot them and we know where they fit. And if we are in the process and precision arena, we got a lot of people over here, but we need to move into innovation and agility and teamwork, then we can make those move, make recommendations on how to move. Or for example, on this chart, we have a lot of people in teamwork, innovation, and agility, but nobody in results and discipline. We could ask some people to move down into this behavior, or we may need to go hire people to bring them in. And then we can fill the gaps by understanding what the gaps are, what people are doing. We're able to look at that, see how they fit, make sure they're going to be a behavior fit, and then we can actually move forward in the hiring process. By doing this, we do an assessment of the candidates. We compare that assessment to the job profile based on the strategy you're trying to achieve as your business unit. And we say, well, how are they going to fit? Are they cognitively, meaning aptitude, intelligence, able to do the job? And then behaviorally, are they a good fit? Are there natural tendencies to perform the way you want them to perform? And then lead. You have to lead the organization. Waiting for something to happen. You don't want to be that guy sitting at the desk watching the paperwork fall on top of you. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy that jumps on the desk and starts paddling and making things happen. And that's where we are right now as we're going into the recession. If you haven't looked at your team and how they need to change and start shifting their thought process, you may consider working with us so we can look at how your team works and think about how to realign them internally with the organization. If you have some big gaps, we can help fill those with that. because every business leader is responsible for the business strategy, the people to make it happen, and the business results. And when we focus on that, we have a people tax. If you don't hire correctly, meaning you got not only the expense of hiring the wrong person, then having to rehire them, but when they don't do their job the best way they can, then you start to have execution risk. You can't get the strategy done. And when you're going into a recession, you need to be responding faster than your competition, relatively faster. Meaning if it takes them 30 days to make a decision, you need to make a decision in 20 days. So you want to have the right people in the right jobs. And if you don't have the right people in the right jobs, you're not able to execute, which ultimately means you're not able to hit your targets for your organization, which could ultimately mean lower margin, lower profits, or even drastic measures going out of business. And in a recession, a lot of things are going to happen. Companies are going to go out of business. People are going to move for opportunities. People are just, talked about food. People may have to worry, well, do I work or do I go feed my family? Working should feed my family until I can't make enough to pay the food bill, right? Or pay other bills. I have to make those choices. So you want to make sure you hire well. And the way we do that is through talent optimization. As a talent optimization coach, consultant, we're able to help you look at your team based on your mission and your strategy. Make sure your team is designed correctly, hire people to fill those gaps. Once we have the team working, give us advice on how to behave better, communicate more effectively, work on our weaknesses, strengthen and reinforce our strengths, and understand how other people work as well, and diagnose any problems that are happening. But it all starts with understanding the mission, building supply chain resilience through people. And the time is now. I know we're kind of going into holidays. Things are starting to slow down. But this is when, as leaders, we should be thinking. When everyone else is resting, we're planning, we're thinking, we're trying to get ready. So when they come back, we have a plan and we can execute and continue to move forward. Because we are in a world where work is different than it was just 2 or 3 years ago. There's people that just don't want to work. So there's a labor shortage, or, we're not able to make enough, or whatever. There's skill gaps with a new world, new technology, even supply chain. People need to be different, think differently. So there may be gaps there. And the great resignation, as we've heard about, people just choosing not to work, or lately the quiet resignation, where they sit quietly at their desk and they don't do their best work. They just do enough work to look like they're productive and then do nothing else, because they can look on their phone, they go on social media, they can do whatever they want, right? Because we are in a hybrid work environment, all these different things. So if you have someone who's motivated for that type of work, then you're likely to get better work out of them. And that's where we come into talent optimization. It's all about aligning the people to produce the results of your business strategy. Make sure you understand your strategy, fill the people to achieve that strategy so you get your business results that you're trying to achieve. How do we do that? Well, you want to think about Moneyball. Moneyball is a movie that was put out in about 2011. It's about the story in 2002 when the Oakland A's redesigned how they recruit, and they did it based on statistics. Based on statistics, they were able to find who was maybe not the most dynamic or charismatic player, but they were the most effective player. They could pitch best, they could run best, they could hit best. And you put all that together to create the perfect team. And that's what we do with our platform, is that we work with your team and put them in the best position that they're going to be able to perform in, based on rigorous assessments that have been around for 6 decades, over 400 studies, 25,000 employees, and 120 different jobs. From there, they went down and even further diagnosed 127,000 people and 22,000 teams to validate 9 team types. I share these statistics with you, and I can give you the science more when we talk, meaning that the tools we use to help you are based in science, grounded in rigor, have been tested again and again, scientifically backed up with the data. So we're not guessing, we're looking at the numbers, and based on the math, putting the best person in the best job. Best person, the best job. 14 profiles have been identified, 9 team types, and 10 strategy types, taking all that information to make the perfect team to score home runs for your organization. So what I want to do is offer to you to help hire your next key position. What we'll do is we'll look at the job analysis. We'll create a job post, put that out there. Once we have the job post, you start getting candidates in. When you get your top 3 candidates, we will then do an assessment with those candidates, create a custom interview question, which I'll talk about when we get together about your strategy for hiring, and create custom interview questions and allow you to hire correctly. The steps are: schedule a 20-minute session with me. I'll go through what your needs are. I'll demonstrate the platform in detail, how it works. We'll analyze the job, create the job post the job, bring in your top candidates, send out assessments, find the right perfect fit, narrow it down to 3. With those 3, we'll create a custom interview guide for you, and then you'll hire that person. And in the supply chain field, we can help you onboard that person, give them the skills they may be lacking as far as technical supply chain skills, but we want to make sure they're a good fit, because we can train them to do anything as far as technical things, but do they have the right mentality, the aptitude, the behavior you're looking for to transform your supply chain into something new? How do we do that? You want to connect with me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best, most effective way to connect with me is go to LinkedIn, Randall Malden, connect with me there, send me a message, and that way we can connect and we can talk that way. Then, or you can go to my website, jackquinsolutions.com. There we have some notification or contact forms there. You can put in your name, phone number. I'll reach out to you there, as well as there's some assessment links. You can go to those websites, check out the assessment, give it a shot, see how it works for you personally. Once you've done that, then we'll hop on a call. We'll go through the assessment and then start to work on your profile, how you can be a better manager. And then if we want to, we go in to look at your team and see how we can start to realign your team as well. Send me an email at randy18@jqsllc.com or phone number 877-680-0494. I want to go ahead and also do a shout out for an upcoming webinar on Thursday, November 17th at 7 p.m. Be about 30 minutes. 5 steps to managing your supply chain. It's a great way to find your gaps, realize your strategy, look at your supply chain from beginning to end, from raw materials all the way to customer delivery, see where your gaps are, see where your strengths are, and then look at your team to say, okay, well, can my team support this type of supply chain? Can it support this type of supply chain? All right. So with that, if you have any questions, please let me know. Appreciate everyone attending. Go ahead and send me an email. That way we can go ahead and answer your questions, get connected, get started with your strategy. And I know we're getting through the top of the 7:28, said 30 minutes, 2 minutes early. I know it's almost Veterans Day. Some of us may be out tonight as well. As you may be out, maybe coming in, whatever it might be. So you want to enjoy your holiday, be safe out there. And then when y'all come back, we'll connect. I'll reach out to everyone. Make sure you get a replay of this so you can share it with your colleagues. Let them start thinking about a different way of setting up the supply chain team, as well as start to think about how we can connect and get you that first hire as we're going into the holiday season. Again, now's the time to plan, get things ready. So when you come right into the new year, it's like, Randy, we're in November. Why are we talking about the new year? Because we're in November. Basically, we're in December and we're almost to the new year, right? The politics are done, and now we got to move forward with the business and respond to the economy the way it is. All right. So with that, have a wonderful evening. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.